If you feel like your body has betrayed you, like pleasure is something reserved for other people, something you have to earn, or something you're always getting wrong, this little corner of podcast land is for you. I'm your radical, rageful mama bear, fiercely defending your right to feel good in your body and dragging you lovingly through the annotated bibliography of everything your sex ed forgot to mention. Because here's the truth. Pleasure isn't a side dish, it's not fluff, it's not luxury, it's your body's way of saying, I'm alive, I belong, and I have power. Welcome to the Nature of Pleasure. I'm Nicole Siegel, certified sexological body worker and creator of the Body Compass Method. And this is where we unravel the quiet codes of your body, the hidden intelligence beneath desire, and the organic rhythm of your erotic nature. If you've ever said, I just can't be in my feminine because he won't lean into his masculine, this episode is for you. And also, I am gently and super lovingly coming for you. Because what if your polarity issue isn't actually about divine energies or yin and yang dynamics, but about plain old codependency in a velvet rope? This episode is for anyone who feels stuck in relationship patterns that look like mismatched roles, but feel like emotional exhaustion, disconnection, and erotic flatlines. Whether you're the woman who can't relax because you're carrying the emotional weight of two people, or the man who's trying to be enough by making your partner your therapist, mother, and mirror all at once, this is your wake-up call. We're breaking down the myth of polarity and revealing what's really underneath: dysregulated nervous systems, unmet emotional needs, and the sneaky ways we outsource our power and then call it love. If you're ready to reclaim your erotic sovereignty, stop playing adult daycare in your relationship, and finally feel safe enough to soften, let's get into it. Oh, and before we dive in, if your body is already whispering more, please, I've got options. If you're just starting this journey or your nervous system needs a gentle, private invitation back to sensation, grab my free video series, The 3 Best At-Home Sexological Bodywork Practices for more embodied sex. These are slow, simple, body-loving rituals you can do from the comfort of your own bed. No pressure, no performance, just reconnection. And if you're listening with a partner in mind, or you've been dreaming about what it would feel like to be touched like someone actually studied for it, Reset Your Erotic Rhythm is my step-by-step couples course for reawakening desire, even if it's been on mute for months. You can find both in the show notes. Go get them. Your body is already asking. Let's get one thing straight. If you are sitting there saying, I just can't be in my feminine because he won't lean into his masculine, I want to lovingly shake you by the shoulders and say, that's not the problem. That's actually the symptom. What you're calling a masculine-feminine polarity issue might actually just be codependency wearing lipstick and talking about polarity charts. In today's episode, we're going to get into the very real, very unsexy dynamic that happens when one partner becomes the emotional life support system for the other. When your man is leaning on you for every drop of confidence, direction, and self-worth, and of course, you can't relax. Of course, you don't filter enough. That's not polarity. That's parenting. And on the flip side, if your eroticism only turns on when he's being assertive, he's planning date night, he's making you feel sexy, then we got to talk, because your sex life shouldn't hinge on his masculinity. That's not sensual surrender. That's energetic dependence. So buckle up. We're not just blowing up the masculine feminine myth today. We're giving you your damn power. Let's be real. What so many people call a polarity issue is actually a nervous system issue in disguise. You're not struggling to be in your feminine. You're struggling to feel safe enough to let go. Because here's the truth your body knows before your mind catches up. You can't soften when the person next to you is energetically clinging to you like a toddler hanging off your leg at the grocery store. When your partner looks to you for every ounce of emotional regulation, am I doing it right? Do you still want me? Should I take this jog? Your nervous system clocks that not as support, but as a burden. And burdens don't make us feel sexy. They make us brace. They make us tighten. They put us in hypervigilance, which is a classic sympathetic state. That's fight or flight part of your nervous system that says, I have to hold it all together right now, or this whole thing collapses. And here's what happens next. You start calling this tightness a block in your feminine. You think, if only he would lead, I could relax. But what your body is really saying is, I'm not relaxing because I don't trust this person to self-regulate. I'm not picking up the slack for two nervous systems, and mine is overwhelmed. This is not about gender roles. It's not about how alpha or masculine you're managed. It's about co-regulation gone wrong. When one person stops anchoring themselves and leans so hard on the other that it becomes emotional enmeshment, that's not hot. That's not healing. That's nervous system chaos with a polarity bow on it. And here is the beautiful part. Once you see this clearly, it's not about making him more masculine. It's about both of you building inner regulation. Two whole nervous systems meeting as lovers, not as a child and a caretaker performing erotic theater. From a nervous system perspective, this dynamic often puts the overfunctioning partner, usually the woman in this case, into a chronic sympathetic dominant state. That's your fight or flight mode. Even if it doesn't look like panic on the outside, internally you're managing a constant low-level hum of hyper responsibility. You're scanning for his mood, your self-worth. You're scanning for his mood, his self-worth, his next existential crisis, and your body treats that like a survival threat. You may find yourself irritable, disconnected from your own desire, or struggling with sleep, digestion, and yes, your libido. Because in a sympathetic state, your body deprioritizes pleasure and connection in favor of control and protection. Meanwhile, your partner, the one leaning heavily on you, might be in a dorsal vagal response. That's the freeze or shutdown state. He's not lazy or weak. He's dysregulated. He's outsourcing his sense of safety to you because his nervous system doesn't feel capable of sourcing it internally. But here's the thing. No amount of your soothing, caretaking, or initiating is going to pull him out of that. In fact, when one person overfunctions, it can deepen the other's underfunctioning. You're not restoring polarity. You're reinforcing a trauma bond. So if your body is bracing, tightening, or shutting down every time he enters the room, don't blame the loss of the masculine. Your nervous system is wise. It's saying, I don't feel held here. I feel like I'm holding both of us. And that's not safe enough to soften. Okay, let's flip the script now, because just like some men outsource their emotional regulation to their partner, a lot of women outsource their eroticism, and then they call it being in their feminine. But let's be honest, if the only time you feel sexy is when he's making you feel that way, we've got a problem. That's not feminine energy. That's dependency dressed up in lace. Here's how it works. You don't feel turned on unless he initiates. You can't access desire unless he plans a whole date night experience. You feel dead inside unless he's being dominant enough, attentive enough, present enough. So what do? You wait. You wait for him to create the conditions where you can finally feel safe enough, sexy enough, and open enough. And when he doesn't, you shut down. You say you have low libido, you wonder what's wrong with you, and you blame the relationship. But what's actually happening here is your own erotic energy has become reactive instead of generative. You've wired your nervous system to only come alive in response to his behavior rather than cultivating a relationship with your own sensual body, independent of his performance. And let's bring this back to the nervous system again, because this pattern often shows up when the body has learned that it's only safe or only allowed to feel pleasure and connection with someone else, usually someone pleasing, which means that your eroticism is still living in a fawn response. The nervous system's attempt to earn safety through compliance, desirability, or attunement to another person's needs. So when that other person isn't giving you what you need, you collapse, you freeze, you start thinking maybe you're just not in your feminine enough. But again, your nervous system is doing exactly what it's been trained to do. Stay shut down unless the environment feels perfectly safe and externally curated. That's not empowerment. That's erotic codependence. All right, let's talk about another scenario. Let's talk about the woman who says she just wants to be claimed. She wants him to initiate, to take the lead, to be the strong container so she can finally melt. But when he doesn't, when he's hesitant, when he pulls away, when he's in a season of self doubt or collapse, an organic state, she doesn't just feel disappointed. She feels rejected, unlovable, unsexy, unchosen. Suddenly, it's not just, I wish he was more in his masculine. It's, I must not be worth claiming. And now we're in deep because now your nervous system is reliving a wound that existed long before this man ever entered the picture. And here is what's really happening. You've tethered your sense of erotic identity to how someone else sees you. You're not using his presence to amplify your radiance, you're using it to validate it, which means the moment he turns inward, falters, or simply doesn't perform the fantasy script you've handed to him, your entire sense of desirability crumbles. And again, let's go to the nervous system for a second. This is classic attachment triggered dysregulation. It often shows up when your erotic identity was never safely mirrored back to you in early life. Maybe your sensuality was shamed. Maybe love always came with conditions. Maybe being chosen meant you had to earn it through beauty, performance, sex appeal, silence, caretaking. So now you're subconsciously recreating the same setup. You want to feel desired, but only know how to access that feeling when someone else turns the light on for you. And when they don't, your body slips into dorsal vagal shutdown or spirals into anxious arousal, both of which make real intimacy and real erotic self connection nearly impossible. And here's the part that breaks the spell. Being in your feminine doesn't mean waiting to be chosen. It means choosing yourself so completely that any love you receive amplifies your radiance, but never defines it. Okay, let me give you another scenario here. Let's talk about one of the most common places codependency hides in plain sight: decision fatigue. Constantly saying you want him to just take charge. You're tired of making all the plans, managing the to-do lists, handling the groceries, the vacations, the social calendar, the therapy appointments, the IKEA assembly instructions, the existential crises. You're fantasizing about handing over the reins and relaxing into your feminine. But then here's the kicker. You don't actually know what that would feel like, because underneath your craving to surrender is this quietly humming fear: if I don't hold it all together, everything will fall apart. That's not feminine energy. That's hyper independence rooted in survival stress. But here's where it gets really sneaky. Instead of acknowledging that fear, many women bypass it by waiting for him to step up, to take over, to make you feel safe enough to finally rest. You say you're in your feminine, but actually you're frozen. You're in a dorsal shutdown, indecision, and now you're just outsourcing the part of you that doesn't feel safe leading her own life and pinning the blame on your partner for not being masculine enough to lead for you. On his side, he may be avoiding leadership not because he lacks masculinity, but because he's terrified of getting it wrong. Especially if every time he does take the lead, you end up correcting him or resenting him or silently judging him from the back seat, which, girls, I get it. I so get it. But let's get something straight. That's not polarity. That's two dysregulated nervous systems dancing around each other with zero internal anchoring. One is frozen, one is anxious. One overfunction until she crashes, and the other underfunctions until he gets passive aggressively blamed for not holding the container and he himself feeling purposeless in his life. It's not masculine or feminine. It's about internalized helplessness and the fantasy that someone else will come and fix it. And so for the fellas, if you are sitting around waiting for your partner to tell you that you're enough, to make you feel desirable, to guide your purpose, to tell you're a good man on repeat like a broken affirmation loop, let's get something straight. That's not intimacy, that's emotional outsourcing. And it's not your partner's job to be your source of self. You might think you're being emotionally open. You might call it vulnerability. You might even be proud that you're not the classic shutdown guy who never shares his feelings. And hey, that's great. But vulnerability without self-responsibility becomes emotional leakage. And when you show up to your partner leaking, hoping your partner will patch the holes in your self-worth, you're not leading, you're leaning. and not in the good way. You're leaning so far in, she has no choice but to brace herself to hold you up. And what's happening when she's bracing? She can't feel safe in her body. She can't soften. She can't access the fullness of her erotic expression because she's holding the container you're supposed to be building with her. And from a nervous system perspective, you're putting her into a sympathetic state, fight, flight, or fix. And your own body likely stuck in a looping anxious attachment pattern or dorsal vagal collapse, pinging out need after need like an internal SOS. Here's the truth. Women do not need you to be perfect, but they do need you to be an adult, not a curated alpha male podcast digesting archetype of masculinity, but a self-sourced, self-responsible human being who brings a whole nervous system to the table. Because eroticism doesn't thrive in pity. It doesn't arise in emotional codependence. It's not born from, am I doing okay, babe? It's born from you knowing who you are, even when she's not looking at you. Trying to revive the vibe in your relationship? Don't start with lingerie. Start with reset your erotic rhythm. Here's the real medicine for both of you. You don't need him to be more masculine. You don't need her to be more surrendered. You need to be whole in yourself. You need to be whole enough in yourself that your nervous system doesn't mistake codependency for connection. Because when two people show up half built, hoping the other will fill in the gaps, what you create isn't intimacy. It's architecture made out of scaffolding. It's shaky, it's heavy, and it'll collapse under the weight of unmet childhood needs, power games, and unspoken fantasies about who's supposed to carry what. But when both of you come to the table with nervous systems that know how to self-source safety, pleasure, and worth, that's when polarity becomes play, not pressure. That's when surrender becomes art, not survival. That's when leadership becomes a gift, not a grasp for control. And that's when sex stops being a performance of gender roles and starts becoming a lived expression of mutual aliveness. Let's stop pretending this is about masculine and feminine. This is about adult nervous systems in communion. This is about taking radical responsibility for your own aliveness so that when you meet in the middle, it's not from a place of lack. It's from a place of overflow. That's erotic sovereignty. That's what creates the kind of connection that feels like both coming home and setting fire to the sheets. Not because one of you became more masculine, but because both of you stopped asking the other to carry what was always yours to hold. Let's land this with something really tangible for you because awareness is a beautiful first step, but embodiment is where the real rewiring happens. So here's your invitation. Take 10 minutes today to sit quietly and ask yourself, what part am I asking my partner to hold, validate, or animate for me? It might be your confidence, your eroticism, your direction, your softness, your safety. Whatever it is, place a hand on your body where you feel that need the most. Not to shame yourself, not even to fix anything, just to witness it, to own it, to gently bring it back home. And then breathe. Let your body feel the difference between reclaiming something and outsourcing it. You don't have to become hyper independent, but you do have to be in a relationship with yourself first, because no one can hold you well when you've abandoned your own center. Do you want to bring this into your relationship without starting World War III? Here's a practice you can try. Try saying, can we talk about the places where we might be leaning on each other for something we're meant to be cultivating in ourselves? Not to pull away, but to grow stronger so our connection can actually feel lighter and sexier again. This isn't about blame. It's about clearing the emotional debris so real polarity, real desire, and real connection can breathe again. All right, those are the 2 practices for you. I hope you get something out of them. If this episode stirred something in you, good. I hope you let it. I hope you let all the feelings feel, because the goal isn't to shame you for the places you've leaned too hard or held too much. It's to help you see the truth beneath the story that you're holding. Not, she needs me to be more masculine. Not she needs to soften, but where do we each need to come home to ourselves first? That's where real intimacy lies. That's where real intimacy lives. That's where your body finally exhales. And that's where eroticism stops performing and starts pulsing naturally, deliciously from the inside out. And if this episode gave you that, oh, damn, I needed to hear this feeling, share it with someone who might need a loving call in too. Let's rise up together. Until next time, stay sovereign, stay sensual, and stay out of the codependent spiral. If you've been giving your partner books, podcasts, loving hints, carrier pigeons, and they still don't speak your body's language, yeah, I made something for that. Reset Your Erotic Rhythm is my couples course for bringing intimacy back into rhythm without cringe scripts, weird sex games, or resentment under the surface. It's loving, it's structured, and it works even if your sex life has been on mute since 2020. Check it out in the show notes. Let me do the teaching so you can get back to the touching.